Hello students. This video and those that follow over the next few weeks will hopefully provide you each with a very basic understanding of mathematical concepts you will be seeing in the next school year. In each video, we will review items already introduced to you, whether this year or in previous years. We will show you the next grade's additional standards, and we will provide a few sample problems to work on and master. It is recommended that for each video you have paper and pencil, a quiet work environment free of distraction, and at least 30 minutes to watch, pause, and practice these items. Remember, you can rewatch these videos throughout the week. If needed, you could find additional material on Study Island, and you will also receive supplementary information and instruction from your teachers via Google Classroom. The first item we're going to do is we're going to refresh on the number systems of rational numbers. That sounds like a lot of information, but really it's actually quite simple. You've been actually learning number systems since you were in kindergarten. Number systems refers to sets of numbers. We start out in kindergarten with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We call these the natural or counting numbers. From there, we add that number 0. When we add the 0 to the natural numbers, we get the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. We call these the whole numbers. The way I like to think about it, whole numbers have the whole. They have the 0. Integers are also whole numbers, but they are the positive and negative versions of all whole numbers. So if you look at the number line below, you will see the positive one and the negative one. The 1 itself is a whole number. The negative 1 and 1 are both integers. When we have numbers that have a negative or positive value, we have what are called directional numbers. Directional numbers refers to their orientation from 0. So if we look at the number 3 and the number -3, these are both integers, but they are also both directional numbers. The direction to the left, you will notice, are all negative numbers. Those numbers to the right are all positive numbers. These negative and positive symbols represent the direction of the number, the direction from 0. The size of a directional number refers to how far they are from that 0. So the positive 3 is 1, 2, 3 steps away, so we say it has a size of 3. 1, 2, 3 over here, we also say that -3 has a size of 3. The only difference is that the -3 is to the left and the positive 3 is to the right. These are directional numbers. Those will help us with a better understanding of the 7th grade mathematical standard for addition and subtraction of the vertical number line. What that means is we're going to work with positive and negative numbers and find their solution or their sum on a number line. We're going to use directional numbers, so both positive and negative numbers. And we're also going to use what are called additive inverse. We're going to talk about the additive inverse first just to get it out of the way. Additive inverse refers to two numbers that when you put them together, you get the number 0. So if you look up here at this example here, we have the positive 5 and the negative 5. When we put them together, we get 0. I have $5 and I lose $5. I now have $0. Because the 5 and the -5 cancel out, they get a sum of 0. We call these additive inverse. And this works for all real numbers. It works for fractions. 1/2 plus -1/2, well, that's a 0. It works for decimals. 0.3 plus -0.3, also 0. So the additive inverse will work for just any real numbers, whether rational or irrational. What does that look like on this number line? Well, if we start out with our original problem, 5 plus negative 5, we start out at the 0. The first number is positive. If there is no charge in front of the number, it's positive. So it tells us to start in the positive direction and move over 5. That puts us, of course, at the 5 itself. Then the next thing is to add on to that a negative 5. Well, if I add a negative 5, the negative, so I start at 5, I'm adding on to this line a negative 5. Well, the negative goes to the left. That direction is to the left. So positive times a negative, and it gives you a negative. And it has moved us back to our lovely 0. That's additive inverse. Okay. Something else I'd like to talk about real quick in this particular part of the video is the absolute value. So if I look at two numbers, 3 and negative 3, remember how I said each number has a size? The size of 3 is 1, 2, 3. And the size of negative 3, 1, 2, 3. They both have a size of 3. The only thing is, we can do this, and we now say that they both have the same size of 3. Okay, let me redo that with a couple different numbers. If I look at number 1 and the number negative 1, they both have a size or distance from 0 of 1. This has a distance of 1. They both have the same distance. So if I say the absolute value of negative 1 and the absolute value of 1, well, those are both 1 away from 0. So that absolute value is pretty much telling you to ignore the direction. Just tell them how far from 0 is each of these two numbers. Okay, the absolute value symbol, two vertical bars surrounding a number. Okay, this means absolute value. The absolute value of negative 4 is asking you how many steps away from 4 is that number. It does not have a direction. Absolute values do not have direction. We're now going to practice a few of these problems, both the directional numbers and the absolute value numbers. Okay, on the left here, I've got four numbers, all the number 5. And over here, I've got 4 expressions. Okay, an expression, for those of you that haven't been shown this yet, an expression is just a collection of terms. Each of these is a term. I put them together, and it creates expressions. Okay, if we were to add an equal sign in here, now we have an equation. So terms make expressions, expressions make equations. Okay, we're going to look at this first one here. And this one here tells us to start at positive 5. So we're going to start at positive 5. Then it tells us to do the opposite of positive 5. Well, the opposite of positive 5 is negative 5. So this here has a value of negative 5. Okay. The next one is positive. It tells you to start at negative 5. So I start at negative 5. Gives me negative 5. And then the plus sign tells me to keep doing what you're doing. It likes what you're doing. You're going to stay at negative 5. So these two equations have the same value of negative 5. Okay. The way I like to show students, normally how I do this, is actually by counting the sticks. If I take the number negative 3, okay, it tells me to start at negative 3. That's right there. And it tells me to do the opposite of negative 3. Well, the opposite of negative 3 is 3. Okay, so what we can do is I do this slightly different for some students. For some, they want to know the sticks. Well, if I look at it, negative 3. Sorry, writing with a mouse here. Okay, negative 3. I count the number of sticks used in the charge. There's one negative symbol there. That's one stick. There's one symbol there. That's one stick. So I have a sum of 2 sticks. I've got a negative plus a negative. I got 2 sticks. Well, 2 sticks will make a positive number. So I know negative 3, negative times a negative will give me a positive. Let's try another one of those to make sure you guys understand it a little better. Okay. Okay, let me undo that. So let's try another one. Let's try negative negative, positive 6. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing for the first way I tried it. I start with a positive 6. Okay, that guy's right there. I then tell it to do the opposite of positive 6. Well, the opposite of positive 6 is negative 6. But then it tells me to do the opposite again. So I come all the way back over here to the positive 6. So negative, negative, positive 6 is equal to positive 6. If I want to, I can take that same equation and I can count, like I said before, the number of sticks. So if I look at the plus sign has 2 sticks. The negative sign has 1 stick, and this negative sign has 1 stick. So positive 6 times a negative times a negative, well, that gives me 4 total sticks. I'm going to make as many plus signs as I can. There's 1 stick, 2 stick, 3 sticks, 4 sticks. I got 4 total sticks, which is what I have right here. I ended with a plus sign, so I know my answer is going to be a positive 6. One more. If I have a negative, positive, negative 3, this is negative 3 times a positive 1 times a negative 3. Okay, I'm going to count up the sticks again. There's 1 there, there's 2 there, there's 1 there, there's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know my answer is positive. If I come in and add another 1 to it, if I come in here and maybe add, whoops, put that back on the pencil. There's a negative 1 out front. Okay, so now I've got a negative 3 times a positive 1 times a negative 1 times a negative 1. If there's a symbol here, the symbol belongs to a number. If there's no number, it's that ghosty 1. Okay, hopefully your teachers have taught you about the ghosty or invisible numbers. Okay, so this is negative 3, positive 1, negative 1, negative 1. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start at negative 3. Negative 3 is right there. It tells me to keep doing what I'm doing. Okay, so stay at negative 3. Then it tells me to do the opposite. Now positive 3. And then it tells me to do the opposite again. So I'm going to come all the way back to negative 3. Okay, if I do the stick method, negative, negative, positive, negative. Oh, there's a 3 in there. Okay, so I've got 1 stick, 2 sticks, 1, and 1 for a total of 5 sticks. So I'm going to try to make as many positive symbols as I can with these 5 sticks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I ran out on a negative sign, so I know my answer is going to be negative 3. Okay. Now how would these look on the number line? So if I look at this, I've got the absolute value of 5 and the absolute value of negative 5. So I'm going to first start out with just circling those two numbers, 5 and negative 5. I find my starting point, which is 0. And then I ask myself, absolute value, how many bounces does it take to get to each of those numbers? Well, it takes me 5 bounces to get to negative 5, and it gives me 5 bounces to get to positive 5. So the absolute value of positive and negative 5 are both 5. Okay, so now we're going to start putting these concepts together. Right out the gate, we have a fairly familiar one, 6 minus 5, 6 minus 5. Hopefully come in, start out by going to the right 6 because it's a positive 6. And then it says minus 5. Well, minus is the left direction. So we subtract and we get our 1. That's how we do the first one. Okay. The second one has that extra set of parentheses in there. Okay. But we can still look at this and say, well, I've got 3 sticks. If I try to make plus signs, 1, 2, 3. I end on a negative symbol, so this really is just 6 minus 5. It's the same answer as the one before it. Okay, so we come over 6 and then back 5, giving us our 1. Now these two have different negative and positive symbols here. They have different directions, but they have the same size. So let's see what happens with the absolute value symbol. We start out with this one, we circle that 5, and we count up the number of spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know the absolute value of 5 is 5 spaces. So I can say that this one is just 6 plus 5. Well, 6 plus 5 is, of course, 11. Now we come over here and we go look at the negative 5. Okay, the absolute value of negative 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is also a 5. So this one also says 6 plus 5. Okay? So these problems both are the same as well. The absolute value of 5 and negative 5, well, that's just the distance from 0, and those are both 5. Okay, hopefully I'm breaking these videos down pretty nicely for you, give a little bit of break between items. This particular one here, we're going to do the student do problems, okay? You're going to do these problems. I'm going to do them as well. So if you need to, look at them, pause the video, find your solutions, and then hit play again and compare them to the answers that I put forward. Okay? The first one says, what do these look on the number line? Well, negative 5, hopefully I have this set up correctly, should just give me an X right there at negative 5. Okay? Negative 5 is left direction for a value of 5 size. Negative direction, size of 5 gives me negative 5. Okay? The next one is positive negative 8. Okay? Positive negative 8 is, of course, negative 8. If you remember, we can look at it this way. Start at negative 8. That's what the negative 8 in the parentheses says. And then plus sign says continue what you're doing. So if it says negative 8 plus sign, stay negative. If this were switched around, we would have started at 8. And then the negative would have do the opposite. So we jump all the way over here to negative 8. Or if you'd like, we could add those two symbols together. We got 2 sticks here, 1 stick here. 2 sticks and 1 stick is a total of 3. 3 sticks can only make 1 positive symbol and 1 negative. We end on the negative, so we know our answer is negative. Okay. The next one is the absolute value of 7. What would that look like on a number line? Well, hopefully you guys drew your number line, circled that number 7, because that's where we're starting, and you just counted up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You counted up the number of spaces on there. So the number 7, the absolute value of 7 is, of course, 7. It's 7 distance from 0 with no charge. That negative 2, well, go through. Again, we circle that negative 2. That's the initial value inside the absolute value symbol. We want to know the absolute value, which means what is the strength of this number without the direction symbol? Well, that's just 2. So the absolute value of negative 2 is just 2. Okay. Now we put these together in expression form. Okay. And what you're going to see here is on the first problem, we're going to move right 6. We're going to move to the left 5 for a solution of positive 1. The next problem, 8 plus negative 2. We move to the right 8. Then we have that left movement of 2. That negative 2 means move left. So it gives us an answer of 6. Final problem, 3 plus negative 8. The 3 is in the positive direction, so we start out moving to the right. But then the negative 8 combines to be just 3 minus 8. That negative 8 puts me back in the negative column. So we are having an answer of negative 5. So hopefully you're able to figure out these problems. Hopefully this made sense to you. If not, again, look on Study Island. Study Island is actually your additional work today. There should be in your Study Island account a 6th grade week 1 assignment. That week 1 assignment is for you to attempt once. Okay, so this is not like a normal Study Island. It's kind of more like a benchmark test. It's just one test with 10 questions. Okay, so don't rush through it. You don't get a second attempt. If you'd like, you can go back into your normal account, go under Arizona Standards, and go down to the 7th grade standard. If you look at the beginning here, let me scroll up for you guys. If you go back to the 7 NSA1 standard, so as a 6th grader, you're looking for this standard here. If you look at those videos, if you practice those problems, and then go to do the assignment online for your benchmark testing, you'll probably have a little bit of better luck. Remember, you've got the week to do this. Don't rush it. Make sure you're talking to friends to help each other out. Contact your teacher as necessary, and I hope this video was helpful.